Allen Lund Company looks forward to seeing you at Matt's in March.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Scott Thompson.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. We will, of course, take a look at the top trucking headlines of the day here in just a moment. Then after that, we'll take a trip to Capitol Hill, where a subcommittee within the U.S. Senate put the cargo theft problem in the spotlight on Thursday, calling witnesses and looking for solutions. One of those witnesses was Lewie Pugh, Executive Vice President of OOIDA. Jay Grimes, the association's Director of Federal Affairs, walks us through the hearing and what happens next. Then what started as a goal to teach children about the lives of truck drivers led to the creation of a children's book. We speak with the author of Atlas the Trucker Dog about how it all came together. And finally, Marty Ellis recently caught wind of a fresh take on an old problem at loading docks. If other facilities pick up on the idea, the man who drives the spirit of the American trucker says it could benefit a lot of truckers out there. So lots of good stuff for you today. But first, the news with Ashley Blackford.
Thanks, Scott. Freight fraud was the topic of discussion during the Senate Surface Transportation, Freight, Pipelines, and Safety Subcommittee hearing. OOIDA's Executive Vice President Lewie Pugh testified during the hearing and highlighted the importance of truckers needing protections from freight fraud.
There's several factors contributing to this recent explosion in freight fraud. Weak freight rates, overcapacity. We've had increased competition, leading to greater susceptibility among small trucking businesses. Advanced technology and lack of federal oversight and enforcement has also created an environment where fraudulent actors can thrive. Unfortunately, small trucking businesses are both the most vulnerable to fraud and the least likely to be able to recover from it.
Pugh told the subcommittee that there have been several incidents of OOIDA members going out of business after one instance of freight fraud. He added that the most common scenario is when truckers are targeted by scammers posing as legitimate brokers. OOIDA is encouraging regulators to issue a final rule to strengthen existing broker transparency regulations. A proposal is open for public comment through March 20th. Other suggestions included passing the Household Goods Shipping Consumer Protection Act, closing broker bond loopholes, improving and renaming the National Consumer Complaint Database, and establishing a new registration system. A discussion surrounding electric vehicle users paying into the Highway Trust Fund took place during a Senate hearing this week. This fund is the main funding source for highway and bridge projects and generates revenue through fuel taxes. But currently, electric vehicles, despite having heavier batteries, do not contribute to the fund. Gary Johnson, the vice president of Granite Construction, spoke during the hearing. He was representing the Transportation Construction Coalition. He said the next Surface Transportation Authorization Law should stabilize the Highway Trust Fund by incorporating existing and new user fees, as well as necessary general funds to cover approved investment levels.
As a key first step toward achieving the goal of continued investments, we urge all committee members to co-sponsor legislation from Senators Fisher, Lummis, and Ricketts that would ensure drivers of electric vehicles join their fellow motorists in contributing to the investment and improvement of our nation's roads and bridges.
The Fair Sharing of Highways and Roads for Electric Vehicles Act, which was recently introduced by Senator Deb Fisher and Representative Dusty Johnson, would create a fee at the manufacturer level at the point of sale of electric vehicles. Depending on the weight of the battery, the bill would impose a fee as much as $1,550 per electric vehicle. Time is ticking for New York to end the collection of congestion pricing tolls. In a letter to New York transportation officials, the Federal Highway Administration informed the state it must end its congestion pricing program by March 21st. However, Governor Kathy Hochul and the Metropolitan Transportation Authority signaled that the state will not turn the cameras off without a court order. During an MTA board meeting this week, the governor and the Transportation Authority said they have no plans to comply with the March 21st deadline. In a statement, MTA Chief of Policy and External Relations John McCarthy called the Federal Highway Administration's order unlawful. He said the issue will be up to the courts to decide. According to MTA, congestion pricing brought in nearly $49 million in its first month, putting it on track to raise the projected $500 million in net revenue. The numbers are in for cargo theft in 2024, and they're not great. The total volume of cargo theft in the United States increased by nearly 50%, according to Overhaul, a Texas-based supply chain risk management company. Overhaul recently released its annual report for the U.S. and Canada. According to data from the report, there were a total of 2,217 recorded cargo thefts throughout the United States in 2024, marking a 49% increase from the previous year. California and Texas saw the highest number of thefts, with 32% in California and 19% in Texas. Tennessee, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Illinois were also among the states most targeted by thieves. As far as what was stolen, electronics made up roughly 24% of all U.S. cargo theft in 2024. Miscellaneous shipments made up 15%, and home and garden was 10%, rounding out the top three most targeted commodities for cargo theft. After analyzing time series data from 2024 trends, Overhaul said it anticipates national cargo theft volumes will increase 22% in 2025. Despite the collapse of the Key Bridge, the Port of Baltimore handled 45.9 million tons of cargo in 2024, making it the second best ever year after 2023. According to a press release, the total cargo had a value of $62.2 billion, the third most in the port's history. The Port of Baltimore is number one for farm and construction machinery. This year, it handled 848,628 tons. Baltimore also handled more imported forest products and imported gypsum than other ports. The port handled 749,799 cars and light trucks, ranking second nationally. It also ranked second for salt and exported coal. Overall, the Port of Baltimore finished 10th nationally for total cargo and 11th for dollar value among U.S. ports. One person is dead after the Tesla they were driving veered into oncoming traffic and struck a Mack truck on Tuesday morning in New Jersey. Fox 29 reports that a 44-year-old was pronounced dead at the scene. The 51-year-old dump truck driver was uninjured. The article states that the Tesla driver moved from the northbound lane into the southbound lane and struck the side of the Mack truck. A truck driver in Nevada is recovering in the hospital after he was shot in the leg while standing outside his semi-truck. The Mineral County Sheriff's Department reports that on the evening of February 25th, a truck driver was shot in the leg after a vehicle pulled up and discharged approximately 5 rounds on U.S. Highway 6 near Montgomery Pass on the California border. The victim sustained non-life-threatening injuries and was transported to a hospital in California for treatment. The Mineral County Sheriff's Office is investigating the incident. And finally, road construction crews in Nevada were busy after a cow got loose and was found wandering onto a Las Vegas highway. Apparently, the cow had been on the loose for several days after it fled from animal control officers. UPI reports that the Nevada Department of Transportation was able to wrangle the cow away from the busy roadway and to an area where it could be secured. No injuries were reported. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Ashley Blackford.
Thanks, Ashley. If you want in-depth coverage of the trucking industry, you can find whatever you're looking for on our website, landline.media. From reporting and opinion pieces to pretty much anything in between, check it out at landline.media. Coming up next, we'll check in with Jay Grimes of OOIDA's Washington, D.C. office, who was on Capitol Hill on Thursday for a hearing on cargo theft, one in which OOIDA Executive VP Lewie Pugh took part in. We know what the problems are, but where are the solutions? Jay's got some thoughts right after the short commercial break, so stick around right here on Landline Now.
Capital Reman, the leader in remanufactured diesel engines and components, has partnered with OOIDA to offer exclusive member benefits. Visit CapitalReman.com today to support America's transportation industry and take advantage of your benefits.
Running on ultra-low sulfur diesel? Stay protected this winter with Howe's Diesel Treat and Diesel Lifeline. Steer clear of gel and ice with North America's #1 trusted brand. Find Howe's products nationwide at select retailers, auto parts stores, truck stops, and on Amazon.com.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Welcome back to Landline Now. The rising problem of cargo theft was in the spotlight on Capitol Hill Thursday when a subcommittee within the U.S. Senate took up the issue, calling witnesses and looking for solutions. One of those witnesses was Lewie Pugh, Executive Vice President of OOIDA. Jay Grimes, the association's Director of Federal Affairs, joins us now to walk us through the hearing. Jay, good to talk to you.
Good to be with you. Yeah, busy day here in Washington with a very important hearing on a critical issue, especially for small business truckers, and highlighting the concern and the need for action when it comes to combating freight fraud.
Yeah, and the big question I'm going to ask you here in a little bit is, where do we go from here? But before we get to that, that big question that I'm not sure we have an answer to quite yet, but this hearing was within the Senate Surface Transportation Subcommittee. You know, we all know, we've talked about it ad nauseum over the past several months, several years, really, I guess it's been now, about cargo theft, how big the problem is, how big it's getting and continues to go on and on and on. This subcommittee has taken note of that. The goal of this hearing today was to do what exactly?
Yeah, a couple things. First, to really raise awareness about this freight fraud issue. And I think it was not a coincidence that this was the first hearing for the Senate Subcommittee on Surface Transportation and Freight, now chaired by Indiana Senator Todd Young. So they chose this topic to be the subcommittee's first hearing. And I think, kind of talking with some of the senators and the staff beforehand, they kind of, have made the point that this has not really been a focus of Congress over the last 2 years, even though it's costing trucking alone close to $1 billion. And certainly that was, I think some of the perspectives that we brought to the hearing today, but this is also kind of an ongoing problem for the rail industry as well. So this was an opportunity to kind of get the word out to lawmakers, and certainly there's been legislation that's been introduced by a couple of senators on the committee that we think is going to be a key solution to kind of taking action against some of these fraudulent and criminal actors that are plaguing the trucking side of things. So a worthwhile hearing, glad that OOIDA was able to be at the panel talking directly with senators who, again, over the next 2 years here, we're kind of going to be building up to a critical surface transportation highway bill, which is due up towards the end of 2026. So the main focus of this committee is going to be writing that bill over the next couple of years. I think this is going to be a critical issue that we hope will either find its way legislative solution before then, or definitely be included in that major bill that's going to be due up next year.
Yeah, I think something that you mentioned there I think is important, that this was one of the first hearings that they did hold, right, with this new Senate.
Yep.
The fact that they're looking at this issue, the fact that they recognize that it's a big problem, one that they can do something about to address. Also important, again, you mentioned this, but I think we should underscore this idea that Lewie Pugh was there speaking on behalf of actual truck drivers,
Yep.
Independent owner-operators, the folks that we hear all the time being affected by these cargo theft schemes, these fraudsters that are out there. It's not just stealing boxes off of out of a trailer anymore. It's these complicated, rerouting schemes that are going on right now.
Yeah.
Just the value of having Lewie there, talking about this issue in plain speak to senators, some of them who may not understand the issue all that much, talk about the value of that, because I know you and your colleagues there in the Washington, D.C. office do a lot of work to prep Lewie on these types of things. What exactly was the message that you were hoping that he would get across? And from what I could tell, it seems like he did a pretty good job of doing that.
Yeah, no question. So a couple points that we really wanted to convey to the lawmakers. You mentioned the types of scams and the sophistication that is being perpetrated against small business truckers, and whether it's rerouting schemes, certain types of double brokering, the stealing a motor carrier's identity, DOT number, motor carrier number, to pose as either a fraudulent motor carrier or fraudulent broker to really steal thousands of dollars from truckers, from professional drivers out there. And I think really Lewie made the point that just one case of fraud can be enough to ruin a small trucking business, if that's upwards of either $5,000, $20,000, and even higher. These are examples that we have seen where truckers are being victimized, and the not only the economic costs of these crimes that are taking place, but the safety problems, where this is money lost that isn't going back into the vehicle to perform maintenance or safety upgrades. And then certainly in some cases where the profits lost are enough to take a small business owner-operator that has years of experience in trucking, millions of miles of accident-free driving, where they can no longer stay in business. So not only the economic cost, the detriment to safety that's really exploded over recent years, kind of ever since the COVID pandemic. And there's a couple of contributing factors to that, which, Lewie mentioned as well. So economics, safety, the problems, especially facing small businesses, is a lot more difficult for them to respond. And then certainly kind of the lack of enforcement and response from the federal side, where all these different law enforcement groups, the inability of FMCSA to impose civil penalties against folks that they know are perpetrating fraud. I think some of the senators were kind of scratching their heads at what's going on here and why there isn't enough enforcement, targeting of the criminal actors that are stealing hundreds of millions of dollars from trucking and transportation and consumers around the country.
I mentioned earlier that I was encouraged that they're looking at this issue and, trying to come up with solutions to help folks out there that are the victims of these crimes. One thing that was discouraging that you actually pointed out before we hit the record button on this, turnout among the senators on that particular subcommittee was not very high, right? There weren't as many senators as we would like to have seen maybe participating in this particular hearing. That's something that I'm sure you're discouraged by a little bit as well, right?
Well, certainly would have hoped for more senators to have an opportunity to ask questions, at the hearing itself. But it's been a crazy time in Washington. It's been a busy week.
True.
A lot of these senators have a lot of hearings and legislative matters that they have to attend to. So, but they've got an opportunity to submit questions for the record that we can respond to. So I think, and Lewie, has been in D.C. all week meeting with quite a few senators on the committee as well, and we've been working with staff as well to to convey this information. So even though not all the senators on the committee could attend, they're going to get the talking points, the bottom lines that we mentioned in the testimony and in the responses to the senators' questions. So I think it was a big starting point to kind of make this issue prevalent for the committee, and I think this is something that they're going to certainly prioritize moving forward, not only through the legislation that I'm sure we're going to talk to in a little bit from Senator Fisher and Duckworth, but some other ways that perhaps some oversight on FMCSA and some improvements there that could alleviate the fraudulent activity that's going on right now.
All right, Jay, you talked me off the ledge. I appreciate that. A little more encouraged now when I hear that perspective there. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the solutions here because, again, it's frustrating that we know what the problem is. I think the solution, as with most problems, a little bit harder to come by in some cases. This one, we've got some ideas that are out there. You mentioned Senator Fisher's bill that she's co-sponsoring with Senator Duckworth of Illinois. We've got a companion bill in the House. That is certainly one avenue for making a difference on this issue.
Yeah, no question. And this is the Household Goods Shipping Consumer Protection Act, Senate Bill 337, introduced by Senator Deb Fisher from Nebraska, Tammy Duckworth from Illinois, and Senator Fisher was one of the senators in attendance and kind of promoted her bill, which we think would be really an easy lift, should be an easy lift for senators to enact this legislation. And from our perspective, two critical provisions for small business truckers. It would restore FMCSA's authority to impose civil penalties on unauthorized brokers, and then it would also require brokers to verify their physical addresses. So this is kind of loopholes that these criminal actors have been using to pose as fake entities and really access motor carrier information, get on these load boards and steal thousands of dollars. If you've got a verification process, it's going to be a lot easier to identify. And frankly, FMCSA, we think, has a lot of data at their disposal, but unfortunately their hands are tied because they don't have a statutory authority to impose these penalties and fines. And in these cases, they're having to refer cases to the Department of Justice, who this is within the last few years has been the protocol, working with state and local law enforcement as well. And we don't really see the motivation or incentive for some of these other agencies to get involved in the trucking side of things. We know FMCSA has that background, has that experience, and really can be the first line of defense. So if they had more authority to kind of go after these fake brokers, fake motor carriers, criminals, we think that would go a long way. That this bill, Household Goods Shipping Consumer Protection Act, does just that. Of course, there's also going to be a whole host of other solutions that we think can be helpful as well. The National Consumer Complaint Database certainly has been a thorn in our side for a number of years, and kind of elevating that to where it can be a useful outlet for motor carriers and truckers to not only report fraud and broker violations, but other coercion, other federal motor carrier safety regulations, they might have to violate in some instances. And in our experience, that there's no feedback when legitimate complaints are filed. And then I think another point that Lewie made was, not giving FMCSA and DOT more funding for enforcement, but moving the money around to making sure where that money is being spent in the most efficient way to crack down against fraud and improve safety in the process. We see a whole lot of money going towards the wrong enforcement programs right now, and that needs to be changed.
Yeah, and I'm glad Lewie also brought up the National Consumer Complaint Database, just the name being misleading and confusing for a lot of folks out there. And he made a lot of good points during that hearing, of course, but that was one that stood out to me as well there. We don't have a whole lot of time here, Jay, less than a minute actually, but for those listening out there who, want to see some action on this issue, what should they be doing right now?
Yeah, fightingfortruckers.com. If you go to our Protect Yourself from Broker Fraud page, you can quickly type in a note that will go directly to your lawmakers supporting the legislation S337 in the House, S337, and over on the House side, HR 880. So fightingfortruckers.com on our broker fraud page is the place to go.
That's the place to go. It's the thing to do. I'm hoping that we'll see some progress on this issue here in the coming months. And Jay, we know you'll stay on top of it, and we'll talk to you again soon. We appreciate it.
All right. See you next time.
Our thanks to Jay Grimes, OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, for his time there. Landline Now returns right after this short commercial break.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
At Truck Stop, we built a better load board for carriers like you. Sign up today and access over 600,000 loads on the most trusted online load board. Learn why the best in the business rely on Truckstop to make more money and start driving your profit today.
Landline Now, welcome back. In an effort to give children a close-up look at life on the road, Mary Paramore decided to write a book about the adventures of a trucker dog named Atlas. I spoke with Mary recently about the book and her experience with trucking.
Absolutely zero experience until I stepped on the truck to be a rider authorized with my husband, who's retired military and decided he wanted to get a CDL. And so I've ridden with him for 4 years now.
And talk to me about, you've been riding with him. Where did the idea of the children's book come?
I'm naturally a print person. And so here I was on the road seeing so many things and learning so many things, and that I had no clue. And I have 3 little boys. And so I knew that they would enjoy so many of the things, pushing the buttons and the lights and the whistles and how things connect. And so I think it really grew from that and wanting to share that. And then I had my social media account with TikTok, just as a platform to put my videos, because I didn't know what to do with them, but I was making them. And that's where the book idea came from, was just trying to make it more print-based, and so that truckers can hold a child in their lap and share trucking, the vistas that we see. Eventually we'll see, different weather and whatever we see on the road. So I just wanted to share that. Now, the main character of the book is also probably the main character of your life, and he's sitting next to you. Tell me about Atlas. Okay, Atlas honestly filled my empty nest. Thank goodness I got on the truck, because I love my boys. But I don't know, Atlas, can you say hey? Can you say hello? So I'm taking a nap. I'm so tired. Yes, he is my grand dog, my son Joseph. Bless his heart. I have 3 sons, and 2 of them have ADHD. And Joseph is very bright, but his executive function skills are a little limited, and he's very impulsive. So when he was 20 and kind of went from girlfriend to girlfriend for housing, he was in front of a Chick-fil-A, and there was a box of puppies, and they were really cute puppies, and he had money in his pocket. And so he said, I'm going to get that puppy. And he did. And he loves Atlas. He loves him, and he had him for 2 years, but he realized that they are children. If you want to party all night, you still have to get up and walk the dog. You still have to, come home from work and walk the dog. And so it became apparent it was affecting his ability to keep housing and jobs. And it was a lot for him to give up this dog. But he did, and it's still his puppy. And that's why I believe in neutering and spaying your pets. But Atlas is not, because Joseph wants a puppy one day, and I'm trying to honor that. So anyway. And so how did it come about that Atlas would start traveling with you and your husband? Basically, I just kept asking Joseph to let us have him, because it was impacting his life. And he's doing great. And I'm in Joseph's apartment right now, and he's working at the coast, and he's been able to see his puppy a little bit. And we do stay in touch through TikTok, to be honest, because he can see his dog all the time. So. And what does Atlas think about being in the truck and traveling around? He absolutely loves it. And I didn't realize the community of trucking dogs that there are. I mean, there are people who have cats. I don't really know how they quite do it, but more power to them. But there are so many dogs on the road, and I really think it's important. One, I gained weight on the road. My husband's was military, and he's got a lot more muscle than I have. And so I was eating with him, and I gained a lot of weight. I gained 40 pounds on the road. And when I got the puppy, it wasn't that fast, but the puppy helped that I've gotten off the truck. Anyway, but about weight loss. Walking this dog really gets me out of the truck, and I know that it gets other truckers or the truckers out, because I meet them at the dog parks, walking around the pet show. And I just really think it helps truckers get out and get moving, because it is a sedentary lifestyle unless you force yourself for it not to be. And I learned that, and Gigi in the book does TikToks as well, and she does a lot of exercising on the road and showing people how to eat healthy on the road as well.
And so when did you first, have the idea for the book? When did you start writing it?
It was more of I'm going to write this book, and it was very inorganic because I normally write news releases and brochures and things, and I was a newspaper reporter. So I dealt in facts, not trying to fictionalize, and it was a completely different news genre. And normally I don't know how because you're in a visual and verbal, but with print, it's like sometimes it'll just come out. I sit down and it comes out because the story is, the pieces just fit together. And this, I knew I wanted to tell his story, but I really had to work at it. And I think going through the multiple illustrators that I had, I would repackage everything for that person. And in doing that, I think I got a much better product. So I really think that's why that was meant to be there.
And once you had it, you found your illustrator. And what was the process like? I've never written a book, but yeah, what was the process like?
Well, it was interesting because my process in doing something like an annual report is that I know that I have so many pages plus a cover. And I know that those pages have to be multiples of 4 because, you fold a piece of paper in half and 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I thought that was the total count for the book. So when the guidelines were telling me, I think, I forgot what they were because I got told it's self-publishing, don't worry about the rules. But the standard count didn't include the cover page or the copyright page or those things. So that was something to learn for me. But basically, also what was interesting was the layers that she built. So I gave her my manuscript, and by then I already knew what copy would go on each, or which part of the manuscript, I have to start using the language, goes on each page. So you pay by the illustration, either the single page or the whole spread. And so based on that, and she agreeing with what my idea was, sometimes apparently they decide where to split it. But at this point, I kind of knew where the book needed to go. Then she did a rough sketch of that, and we moved things around and did things at that stage. Then it became, I think, inked. I can refer to my notes, but there were 5 stages that came between the rough sketch and the final finished product that got uploaded to Amazon and to Library of Congress. So there was a painted stage, roughs, and I forget the other one. But every time, once we checked that off, then it was done. And if you had to go back in a layer to make a correction, then it was harder for her. Whereas I thought you just laid everything out in full color to begin with. But apparently an illustrator does things very differently. And so I learned that.
Why was it important to use, you used real people, real dogs that you'd met along the way. Why was that so important?
Well, honestly, it really started out as just I don't want to say an exercise in vanity, but an exercise in vanity. It was like, this was a story and I wanted to tell it, and I just wanted to have a book I could hold in my hand. And as it evolved, it really turned into trying to honor the trucking lifestyle, which I never thought I'd be riding around in a truck. And I've been happy. We see the country, we meet cool people, the sunsets and the moon rises, and, driving through California and realizing, there's a different crop it just is it's a fruit basket. I don't know. I've fallen in love with the country, being able to ride around. I really wanted to share that, but it really just started out as honoring people and being something small and saying, well, this is Gigi and this is Ace, and here I did it. But now it really just, it's important to me to honor the truckers that we've met and to try to help them share their life with their family and what they're doing on the road in a way that the kids can feel like they're riding along. One thing I did find that was fascinating was that kids ride along in the summertime with their parents and grandparents, and I just had no idea, but the kids that come out in the summertime. So I really, this is really for them too.
And one of the things that I had read in your press release was, I mean, it's a children's book, but like you said earlier, you wrote it more for the person who's holding the child reading the book.
I did. I think that with our military background and parents, my husband was gone. When you added it up, he was gone 7.5 years. And that's a lot of time. And it was in service of his country. And it just, we were a military family and we did what we did. And it was, the longest stretch was 3.5 years. He'd come home every 6 months. But the trucking lifestyle fits with military lifestyle to me. And I think it's an excellent match because he's a company driver. We don't want the I don't want to say stress. We don't want to run a business.
Yeah.
And we don't want to have the responsibility. We're just at a different life stage. More power to people our age who decide to go into it at that stage. But I think if somebody's younger and want to do it as a business, I think it's awesome. You don't have rent. You don't have to have a car. But with the military lifestyle and being a company driver, Joe just goes where they tell him to go, does what he's supposed to do, follows the rules, and you eke out your life around the duties. And that's exactly what military life is. And it's, we've made family where we are. And so I forgot what the question was now.
How you wrote it for the person, not just the children, but also adults too.
Yes, because they're gone.
Yeah.
They're gone so much. So, they get their ride-alongs on vacations and they get the ride-alongs. And it is a choice as a parent to be on that truck. I see a lot of people, I don't think it's heroic. I think it's a choice. Now, people, the long haul game is you're away from your family. But I think that this book and hopefully the website, some of the activities would give them quality time when they're home together so that they can talk about where daddy's been or mama's been or, grandpa or grandma's been and then say, hey, look, this is what Mississippi, they do have that kind of tree or they do have, this in that state. I didn't show you the road sign too. There's a road sign in Laverne on the cow scene too. You can see what's in our rearview mirror. And so you've got some road signs there too. So
a lot of little details. I'm sure your illustrator learned a lot about trucking.
She did. She did. In fact, she was the one that said she wanted to see inside the trailer. And so I was like, okay, I started thinking about what the next, because we just had a perfect load.
Yeah.
We had a perfect load for one. We picked up at the Port of Baltimore. And Atlas and I got to walk around and there's the domino sign and there's a ship and it's like we picked up 42,000 pounds of sugar in 2,000 pound bags.
Wow.
And we drove them through the mountain over to Wisconsin. And I thought Wisconsin was cheese. No, Wisconsin is also cranberries. And I saw the floating cranberry farms, and we took it straight to and it wasn't that big, the sweetened cranberry plant.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like beginning to end. I mean, doesn't get any more pure than that. So I think if I do more books, I'm going to try to have a route and then build the story around it because I want it to be realistic and to feature the places we've seen.
If anybody watching or listening wants a copy of your book or find more information, where can they go for that?
Okay, I have a website. It's atlastheTruckerDogBooks.com, or book will work, but I messed up I'll get Atlas the Trucker Dog one day.
Yeah.
I reserved it under one provider and I moved to another one. I just can't get it moved over. So I said, to heck with it. We're going to get Atlas the Trucker Dog Book or books.com.
Mm-hmm.
It's on Amazon. But I do have links from the website. And it'll also be available in hard copy through Ingram Spark. And libraries could get it from there.
That was Mary Paramore talking about her children's book, Atlas the Trucker Dog. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackford. Stay tuned for more after this.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com because your job is to drive, Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now, welcome back. Every week we check in with Marty Ellis, who drives OOIDA's tour truck, the Spirit of the American Trucker. Marty is making his way across the southern tier of states on his way to a couple of stops in sunny Florida. And while he's heading that direction, he's hearing about how one company solved a problem at their loading docks with some interesting technology. And it's something that could benefit a lot of truckers if other facilities pick up on the idea.
Carolina west to Denver, up to Bangor, west to Austin, coast to coast, sea to sea, sail on, sail on.
Well, Marty, how are you doing?
I am lovely, Mark, and you?
I'm doing great, thank you. Where are we finding you on this fine day?
Well, I'm over at the Petro in Bucksville, Alabama. I'll be here through the 2nd, and that's I-59 exit 100. It has 255 parking spots, an iron skillet, and a Popeyes.
Okay, well, it sounds like a nice place here. And I guess you've been hearing about a lot of things lately from the folks that come to visit at these various truck stops. I'm kind of curious because you sent me this note that, okay, it involves laser lights, Bush's baked beans, and something involving Augusta, Wisconsin. You got to explain what's going on here because I read this and it's like, I don't know what connects these things. What's going on, Marty?
Yeah, some of the time, my notes, it makes sense in my head. I don't know why it wouldn't in yours. But I just, kind of write down notes on what I pick up on out here, whether it's through our members in person or like this particular one of our members is on YouTube, this Clutch Trucker, and he talked about and he showed a video on these laser lights at the docks at Bush's Baked Beans in Augusta, Wisconsin. I've loaded out of there, and they didn't have them when I was there loading, but they make a laser light on the ground, so even in the snow, you can actually see the lines when you're backing up to a dock to make sure you're straight to the dock. And I thought, you know what? That is fantastic. I think everybody ought to put them in at the docks because it just makes a whole lot of sense. And I just thought it was a cool thing. And if anybody's going to load out of there, they can take a look at it and tell me what they think.
That is a really snazzy idea. I like that. And I don't think it would be too expensive either. I mean, you can go down to the Home Depot or the Lowe's or the Menards or whatever you got where you are and get one of those laser-based levelers.
I hadn't thought about that.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, those
absolutely.
things are not that expensive, and you could fix that up and put them in there, and by gosh, Marty, that is a sharp idea. Good for Bush's Baked Beans. Not only good beans, but good ideas.
Yeah, and they have a nice place up there. I've loaded out of there. They have a scale so you can scale out. They have parking so you can park beforehand or afterwards. And yeah, it's just one of them places that you have no problem going to get loaded out of.
That is interesting, and that's good to hear because we all know there are plenty of the other kind.
Absolutely, yep.
Okay, well, that is interesting. And folks, if you talk to the people at the dock sometimes, this could be a suggestion to give them if you think they're open to listening, and big caveat there. Something else that you brought up recently that you'd heard about was, and I hate to use the words driver shortage because I don't think there is one.
Right. Yep.
But you said there's something about an over-the-road trucker shortage. Now, what do you mean by that? I'm curious.
Well, I think some of the companies are not being able to, and I've gotten a couple phone calls, both of them from members, but one from a member that has a, I'd say a small fleet, and he called me up the other day and he says, I understand about the trucker shortage and I know the big companies, tout that all the time. But he says, when we're actually looking for somebody that wants to go over the road as far as being out like 3-4 weeks at a time or more, those people are getting harder and harder to find. And I get that because I think a lot of people don't look at this as kind of a way of life, being an over-the-road truck driver. It's more of a job now for so many drivers that are coming into the industry. So it's hard for even those people to even think about being gone from their families as much as we did. And we didn't really think much of it because that was just the way things were. And I think some of these companies are really having to rethink what they're doing with that. I think they would have a better chance of getting good quality drivers. And that's what we're talking about. If there's going to be a shortage of anything, it's good quality drivers. But if they're looking at people that want to be out there 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 weeks at a time, I think they are getting harder and harder to find, and because people don't want that lifestyle anymore, not like we did, for years. And so, I mean, there's still people out there. It may be harder to find that want to be out there, but I think more of the bigger companies are going to have to look at maybe, doing, whether it's having drop yards or just, scheduling, you're out and back, at least be home, once a week or once every week and a half or something like that to attract more people of good quality.
It's interesting because we just reported earlier this week on a survey, and this was fascinating. It's by a company called Find It Parts, which, supplies truck parts. But they did a broad survey of people in the public. And what they found is nearly half of the people in America are really open to the idea of becoming a truck driver if the money's right.
Right. Yep.
Half of America is enough.
Yeah, exactly. And it is right. I mean, if you want a person to do a certain job, you have to offer enough money to make it worth their while. And I don't care if it's laying bricks or painting houses or driving a truck. Everybody expects to get paid for what they do.
Absolutely. And there's the key there. I think if you pay people what they're really worth, which I don't think a lot of these companies do, the pay in trucking, especially when you adjust it for inflation, is low historically. But if you pay people what they're worth, if you treat them decently, half of Americans, half of them would be willing to take a look at becoming a truck driver. And it's just the same as always. I mean, I've heard many a trucker say it. There's not a shortage of drivers. There's a shortage of decent pay.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
And there's the key. I mean, I think you are right in terms of how younger generations look at this. A lot more of them see it as a job and not a lifestyle, the way maybe people our age and older thought of it.
Right.
But, you make the money right, you'd be amazed what people will put up with.
Exactly. And that's so true. People go to the oil fields and, spend time away from their family, but they pay a whole lot better than what the average truck driver gets.
There you go. Well, Marty, we're running out of time. What's your next stop after where you are now?
We'll be going down to the TA in Wildwood, Florida for the 4th through the 6th there, and then after that, TA in Vero Beach. So we're going to do a little swing out to the southeast and then get back before Matt's.
Well, fantastic. Well, Marty, thanks for talking with me. Be careful out there. Enjoy Florida. And any final words?
Yeah, just remember, be kind to one another and give that driver next to you a break.
Brothers of the highway, children of the wind.
Once again, that was Marty Ellis, who drives OOIDA's tour truck, The Spirit of the American Trucker. You can find Marty's next stop on our show and every day at our website, landlinenow.com. Again, that's at our website, landlinenow.com. That's our program for today. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife.
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome.
And I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us! Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.